the moving picture's magic tricks.
In 539 BC, Babylon is conquered by the Persians, the last remnants of the Babylonian Empire left in ruin. In 2022, Babylon is a movie that came out, and history repeats itself, as I am apparently one of the 8 people who actually went to see it. Maybe the most accurately titled film of all time, maybe to an extent of genius greater than writer-director Damien Chazelle ever thought, or was it? It's a movie set in the great Hollywood evolution from silent films to the talkies, follows the absolutely ridiculous excess of the era through the perspective of 3 main characters, telling a story of the fall of Babylon, the fall of that old Hollywood and its heroes, the changing of those times, and in some kind of poetic divine intervention.
You know what divine intervention is?
Might even become a metaphor for itself. Very meta indeed. An extra little dash of irony that only makes the movie work even more. Although I doubt losing millions of dollars was at all any part of the movie's storytelling strategy, at least for Paramount Pictures.
You weren't supposed to do that!
And in a year where 2 other movies about movies also sorta kinda flopped hard at the box office, it's fascinating because people obviously still like movies, but I guess they just don't seem too interested in movies about movies. Or it could just not have come out at a worser time. Maybe it's both.
Yeah, well, that's just like, your opinion, man.
This movie is directed like nobody is ever gonna direct another movie ever again. Like it's the last movie. Period. As if the Persians were literally in the outskirts prepping their final attack and Damien Chazelle was given $80 million to make something. I've seen some people calling it a suicide note, asking someone to send him some help. Chazelle says it's a poison pen to Hollywood and a love letter to cinema. You'll see the comparison that this is like Wolf of Wall Street meets Boogie Nights meets Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And it's pretty accurate, I'm not gonna lie. If you like anything of those movies, you're gonna find something to love in Babylon. And I think I love Babylon, but I also hate Babylon at the same time. They simply said, "Fuck yeah!" and swung for the fences, which in any case, I think at least, is always worth some commendability. The effort is right in front of you on screen, and in far more scenes than not, it's absolutely riveting in the very best way. There is one scene that takes place on a movie set, as Margot Robbie's character has to keep redoing the same take over and over again because they can't get the sound working right. Sound being a new invention in the industry that productions are starting to adopt. The crew is screaming at each other, there's a guy dying of heat stroke, begging for his life inside the soundproof camera enclosure thing. It's just absolute chaos. It's incredible. And the music is incredible. They went for it, like no other movie I've really seen. But people don't like it. And it might be that very thing that's keeping people at a distance. For the sake of this, let's just pretend the behemoth of Avatar wasn't in the equation. I haven't seen Empire of Light, so I can't say for that movie, but just like with the box office of the Fablemans, unlike myself and you, because you're watching this video, most people aren't degenerate movie geeks. They just don't really care. And the very idea of using movies to say how awesome movies are, or even just having a movie inside a movie, is quite the ego exercise, even if I do enjoy it, and just might be where the word pretentious came from, as it rose from the depths of hell. Babylon leans into that thematic idea more than any of the other movies that I've seen. The Fablemans goes pretty hard into movies as this magical thing that can do anything, maybe even cure cancer, but it also manages to be self-aware about it at the same time. There are characters in the movie who say exactly what rolling eyes audience members might be thinking, so it works to kinda soften the blow. It's Steven Spielberg using a classic storytelling device that makes it work, where basically you can pull out the get out of jail free card and get away with the ego exercise of saying movies have power if you literally just acknowledge what you've done. People in Fablemans make fun of Manny. Manny is a weird kid. There's that outside perspective that general audiences can still attach to, while also understanding Manny and relating to him. And so for Babylon, I think this might be why so many people are annoyed with it. Even while the movie goes to extreme lengths to show how absolutely disgusting this era and the industry is, or was at the time, or maybe even is still, the way the movie ends is like the ultimate version of that so-called ego exercise. Spoilers if you haven't seen it, but the movie ends with maybe the most bizarre thing I have ever seen in a movie. The main character sits in a movie theater. You think it's about to end as he's tearing up from the beauty of what he's seeing, which is already swinging for it. But then the camera starts to move, and it sweeps down to the lower rows of the cinema, showing one by one the faces of random people in the audience as they watch Singing in the Rain, as if Damien Chazelle said haha and told this camera guy to literally do a 180 and point the camera at you. It's actually somewhat uncomfortable, maybe on purpose. And then it bursts into a montage of clips, first from earlier in the movie, but then it starts to get real weird real fast, showing brief few-second clips of famous movies from the time period of the movie all the way up to our modern time, like some kind of award show history of movies montage. They even show you a clip from the first Avatar movie. Pandora makes a cameo in Babylon. You heard it here first. Then it cuts back to Diego Calva in his seat, and it cuts to black. There have been movies about movies that have been successful, both financially but also just from people enjoying them. Take Inglourious Basterds as the glorious example of this, you could say. Obviously not everyone likes this movie and not everyone hates Babylon, but both movies are undeniably outrageous and one movie has undeniably been received better than the other. But why? A mere minuscule insignificant soul with nothing worth to say, such as myself, would never have that answer, but he can answer it anyway. Inglourious Basterds ends with a grandiose epic scene of the bastards working, although unaware of it, with Jewish cinema owner Shoshana to burn the entire Nazi starting roster inside of a cinema. Again, like these other movies, quite the metaphor for the power of cinema. But it somehow doesn't come off with the same effect of annoyance as Babylon's ending might. You might not actually have realized that's what he was doing until I just said it. I know I didn't until I heard it somewhere. And this is the exact difference. There lies a vast difference in the purpose of both endings. The purpose of Inglourious Basterds ending is to conclude the epic revenge story that the entire movie has been about. We've been cheering for these characters and we love to see them finally pull it off and get revenge on the Nazis for the things they did to them.
Adieu.
The whole power of cinema metaphor is simply a thing in the background, designed to support the impact of the story and its characters' journeys coming to an end. It doesn't become the story, which is kind of what happens in Babylon. When the camera leaves Diego Calva, it's almost like the movie is leaving his story, transforming into something else, transforming into some kind of documentary on film, actually kind of pulling me out of the story. When it maybe could have ended with him looking out at the cinema projection, a conclusion that would have been a very appropriate wrap-up to all the events of the story that just came before, a conclusion that would have served the themes of the characters in a very nice way. Chazelle deliberately chooses a different path.
Essentially, the ending of the movie that we had was too normal, and it's just not. It's not a normal. It's not a movie that wants to be normal in any capacity. It wants to be a little crazy, and so it had to end in a way that was a little crazy or a little outside the norm.
A choice that made it feel like the movie was switching protagonists from Manuel as the protagonist to film as the protagonist. A choice that even didn't sit right with everyone involved with making it.
Even though the ending sequence definitely freaked out some people on the team, but everyone agreed that the movie needed one more wild swing at the end. The sort of big swing of a movie demanded a big swing of an ending.
And perhaps a choice, while still commendable, simply alienates a few too many people. Although for this choice to be the reason why nobody is seeing this, they'd actually need to make it to the final scene, but they aren't even making it to the opening scene, which in the way I'm seeing it, as a movie about the death and beauty of cinema, only just makes this big Babylonian metaphorical exercise even more fun.
Shut the fuck up, Donnie.